70% of the major discoveries and Nobel Prizes in medicine and physiology are attributed to scientists in the United States. Most are funded by the National Institutes of Health. Most applications for funding are reviewed through the Center for Scientific Review at NIH.
Our mission statement is really to do a proper review. Proper means timely, means fair, means without influence, so that NIH can fund the best application and the best research.
Each year, CSR recruits over 20,000 independent experts from the scientific community to review more than 80,000 NIH applications. But for some, the application process may be intimidating.
Lots of people are at different stages when they submit their first grant application, but the first time is still always your first time and you're nervous. You don't really know what to expect from this process.
Understanding our peer review process is essential to writing a successful application. This video will walk you through 2 fictional but realistic applications to help you better navigate the peer review process.
You see how thorough it is and how the decision is based on scholarly merit, on science, on innovation, and that is what makes peer review second to none in this country.
Applications come into CSR's receipt and referral area, where referral officers match each application to a study section with the expertise to review it, and to one or more of the NIH institutes or centers that could potentially fund it. Each application is assigned to a scientific review officer, like Vonda Smith and John Bowers, both PhDs and former researchers.
The scientific review officer, the most important thing we do is to recruit reviewers.
These reviewers include preeminent researchers and scientists from around the country. They perform the actual scientific peer review on all funding applications.
This is my job to make sure your application is fairly reviewed. I will recruit the expertise that is needed to cover this application.
If you've got the right people giving you their best advice, that's kind of 9/10 of it.
Once the peer review committee has been recruited, your application will be assigned at least 3 reviewers. Before the meeting, these reviewers will read your application in detail with an eye toward NIH's core criteria, assigning scores for each and providing preliminary overall impact scores of 1 through 9. Reviewers will also consider issues such as the safety and appropriateness of research involving human subjects and vertebrate animals. The 3 reviewers will also write critiques covering the review criteria, so when the peer review panel convenes, they're ready to discuss each application in detail.
And I'm John Bowers, I'm your scientific review officer for the day. I'm going to go through...
The peer review meeting begins with a statement by the SRO, stressing the confidentiality of the review and the integrity of the review process, and discussing other important issues.
Okay, let me call us all to order. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Grant applications at CSR are reviewed in order of their preliminary scores to help ensure that scores are well calibrated. Reviewers begin with the best scored application.
All right, so we'll start with the first application, and just a reminder, this is from a new investigator, so our special considerations for NIH for new investigators apply here. This is from Dr. Fred Nikoros from Stanford University, defining nickel accumulation in Cronstedt's disease. The reviewers are David Granger, Brian Hoffman, and Martin Filbert, and we'll start by just going around to the 3 of you and getting your preliminary impact scores.
I was less than enthusiastic with a score of 5.
5? Okay, great. Brian?
I was very enthusiastic and came out with a score of 2.
Okay. Martin Filbert?
2.
2. 5, 2, 2. David, just give us a quick summary of the substance of the proposal and then your review comments.
Yeah, this proposal uses high-density micro and nanoelectrode arrays from a talented analytical chemist to determine the distribution of nickel. On this particular application, I was assigned to be the primary reviewer. That reviewer's job is generally to introduce the application to the group, to provide a brief synopsis of the high points and some low points, to underscore the impact of the application, and then to proceed through the criteria for review which have been stipulated by the reviewing process. The weaknesses, though, in innovation is that the electrode array methods have been applied to tissues by other groups with success, and there are limitations that are recognized in the methodology, and the experience of the other groups and their limitations is not documented by the PI. In terms of the environment, The strengths of the environment is that it's very well suited. The PI is well instrumented, and the resources and the environment and its collaborations are in fact very appropriate. The weaknesses of the environment is that the available equipment for preparing samples and running per-col gradients particularly is not evident. Access to fluorescence microscopy is detailed but not adequately described. I found that the overall impact strength was in defining then the intercellular distribution of the accumulated nickel in conditions of nickel overload and in the direct approach to the successful elucidation of these towards a new therapy. So overall, a balanced enthusiasm with the new investigator I found very nice for this particular PI, but I found numerous technical concerns.
Thanks, David. So Brian, if we can move to any of your views that are complementary or contrasting.
I think I probably underweighted some of the flaws, didn't pick up on them or didn't weight them properly because I was so really enamored with these strengths. And I appreciate his reservations, but I've come from a different direction because I was so taken with the methodology. Mm-hmm.
After my review, then the secondary reviewer, Dr. Hoffman, tempered some of the negative points that I had brought up and proposed an alternative view and proposed some other strengths which I didn't see in the initial read and the initial review.
Dr. Hoffman raised the points about the broad significance of this work that I think really began to turn the minds of the committee.
I agree with Brian's assessment. This is a highly innovative proposal from a junior investigator. It uses novel technologies that I think are going to provide great answers. Moreover, I think the innovation is heightened by the fact that virtually nothing is known about Cronstedt's disease.
Great, thank you. So let's move then to a general discussion, and here we're really looking for your comments on aspects of the application that you think will really drive our consideration of the score. So Gail?
Yeah, I had a question just because it is a new investigator, it's a complex system and a as yet relatively uncharacterized disease. What do you think the new investigator's skills in terms of troubleshooting or at least having access to collaborators that may help in that respect?
You're right, it is a new investigator, but nonetheless, in this application, he surrounded himself with general competence to, I think, allay my problems with any confidence in his ability to go to his collaborative team and to adjust his bandwidth within his expertise and go to his collaborators where it's appropriate.
What he hasn't brought to the table in his electrochemistry, I think he'll gain and gather from his collaborators, and so it makes a good team and a good match.
Any other comments? I can go back to the first reviewers and see how you now consider your scores in view of the comments around the table, the nature of the discussion. David?
So I think I'm a bit too harsh with my 5, and I would be willing to reduce my score and increase my enthusiasm based on what I've heard from my collaborators and my friends here at the table. I guess I'll go to a 3.
Okay, so thank you. And Brian?
I'm no less enthusiastic about the methodology, but the framework in which it's embedded, the experimental framework that David's pointed out weaknesses of, I mean, I have to come up a little bit, and I'll meet him at 3.
Thanks, Brian. So 2 3s. And Martin?
Yeah, I'm really sold on the innovation here and on the promise. So I'm going to stay at 2, especially since our comments are going to be communicated to this investigator.
Okay, so thank you. So strong enthusiasm for a new investigator, some reservations about the methodology and how well it will apply to the disease model. So 2, a 3, and a 3. Terrific. Okay, so let's record our final scores.
At the end of each review, the rest of the panel confidentially scores the application.
The discussion really worked, did what it was supposed to do, which was that the group evolved in its thinking and reached a place where I think they felt quite positive overall about the application, strongly positive about the investigator, and felt that he would find his way. Okay, so next we go to a revised application from Dr. Paco Varnashi, Fallingwater Medical Center. This is antigen-presenting tumor fusion hybrid immunotherapy of malignant hepatoma. The reviewers are Gail Eckhart, Bill Kantz, Gina Petroni, and a discussant is Martin Filbert again. So if we can go around and get your preliminary impact scores. Gail?
You know, I really struggled with this application, so I gave it a 5.
Okay, 5. Bill?
I had significant concerns. I gave it a 6.
5 and a 6. Gina?
On initial review, I gave it a 4.
4, 5, and 6. And Martin?
7.
Okay, and let's go back and then get your evaluations. Gail?
Well, just to give you an overview, this application is really based on the hypothesis of using tumor-associated antigen-presenting cells to really develop effective cancer vaccines. And so really, this group is looking at a fusion of both the APCs and tumor cells. And they generate these basically by using a new fusion technique that is ultrasonic. You know, this is a proposal from a well-known investigator who really, I think, technically wrote a spectacular proposal. Well, this is really where I struggled with this grant application, because I think it's technically... But I think as you moved into it, the problem was this was really an approach that's been used a million times.
I basically agree with Gail. I had significant concerns. The disease is extraordinarily significant. There's no question. Hepatoma, very little successful clinical treatments, and a very experienced investigator. But the approach is not novel, and at the end of the trial, I'm not sure we're going to be left with significant information.
I know, it just occurs to me that they could have done a little more work in conveying the idea that this could actually speed up the disease.
Okay, so why don't we then go back and open this up for general discussion, and from what we've heard from the reviewers, any comments from other members of the committee?
Clinical monitoring is a problem when you have such a heterologous population of patients coming in with various stages of disease, some with metastatic complications, some with comorbidities, some with immune competence issues because of their disease or because of the drugs that they're on. And I don't sense that this is controlled for that. And what are we going to get out of it when we subject a population of this heterogeneity to this type of treatment? It just doesn't smack very scientific to me.
The scientists are very serious about the way they look at the process, that there's not an immediate pass given, for example, to someone who's famous or well established in the field. Everybody has to come in with an application that's considered meritorious. Okay, good. So why don't we go back then and revisit the scores, having had this discussion. Gail, where do you...
Well, I think I'm going to move my 5 to a 6. David's points are well taken. I would agree that basically we're stuck with the fact that it's, you know, it's a method and a clinical application that has been tried without a lot of success. So I'm going to move to a 6.
Okay, thank you. Bill?
I'm going to stay at a 6 for the reasons that Gail just described.
Okay, thank you. Gina?
Clearly there are concerns about the scientific rationale for these studies and the information that will be gained from it at the end of the study, so I will move to a 6.
Martin?
I have sufficient remaining concern about the tumor progression issue and some other toxicity issues with major histocompatibility complexes. I'm going to stay at 7.
Thank you. So we have 3 6s and a 7.
Okay, so that's our last application. We are finished. NIH peer review is really active scientists reviewing active scientists. Thank you very much. You've been a great panel. At the end of the day, it's their advice that we value the most.
The review panel does not determine funding. They score each application on its scientific merits. After the review meeting, the scientific review officer writes a summary of the discussion and releases the summary statement with the reviewer critiques to you and the assigned NIH institute or center who will make the funding decision.
Once the review is over, the interaction between the applicant and the NIH is through the program officers.
The program officer will also interact with the applicant after the review process to give advice and guidance as to whether or not an application will be funded, and if not, how that application might be revised the next time so that it could be funded.
NIH is looking for groundbreaking projects supported by great science, science that will help to make giant strides in medical research. NIH is here to help you. Thank you for your contributions to the health of America and the world. We look forward to seeing your application. For more information on CSR and the NIH peer review process, visit our website at www.csr.nih.gov.